Hey guys, we'll let people start joining. We're getting people, the participant numbers are starting to go up.
That's always fun for me. I love watching that happen. It's like Vegas, where it's like, ding, 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 ding.
Exactly. Just wondering if guys, welcome. Tell us where you're from, by the way. Don't be afraid to put your name out in the chat and tell us where you're calling in from today.
That'd be great. We've been having a lovely discussion about where in the world everyone is from. And the other thing, of course, you need to do is guess Andy's accent.
Okay, can anybody guess? I mean, people have probably seen me on here before, and I guess I've mentioned it, but people will get extra points. Extra points.
All right, so when you get a chance, all right, we've got somebody from Amsterdam, fantastic. Alsjeblieft, Dallas, Ohio. That's so good. Once you put in where you're from, Lake Havasu, yay, I've got a boat up there. Once you put in your name, guess where Andy's from. This will be the other thing. So maybe just say like guess or Andy : so we know that that's where you're not where you're from.
I've already seen one correct answer on that, by the way.
Have you? Oh, it's going by fast. I love it. I'm sorry, Amanda, he's not from Raleigh, North Carolina. No, I'm kidding. I know that's where you're from. Andy's from Australia. That is an American. We always guess that. If you speak our language, we can pick out British, but we cannot and then we go to Australia, number 2.
I get Newfoundland. I've never even been to Newfoundland, so that's also not correct.
This is great. Anna, that's the right answer too. Yeah, there we go.
Now for bonus points though, where am I based? That's the big bonus points section there.
Yeah, but it doesn't come through in your accent. You didn't move there soon enough that you've got one of those, combined things happening. Yeah.
No, that's for sure.
Okay, here's somebody from Fredericton. Does that mean something to you? Where's Fredericton?
Means nothing to me. Andrew, where's Fredericton?
And yes, Aaron, he is from Ireland. New Brunswick. This is fun. Sounds Irish. You are correct. Canada. This is great. We could do this all day.
This is good.
That's my favorite thing to do when I visit a new country. This is how you pick your travel friends, what they want to do, right? So my best friend in the world likes to go to breweries and museums. So I never travel with her because I like to go to a bar in the center of town and just sit all day long and people watch and guess where people are from.
Absolutely. Well, the bonus point, by the way, goes to Erin, who's after been doing a bit of a snoop on LinkedIn. So good
well done, Erin.
Investigation, good investigation work there. Okay, guys, look, let's get started because there's plenty of actionable advice that we're going to be getting from Lauren today, so I'm really excited about that. But before we get started, let's go through some little housekeeping stuff. As always, anybody who's been on any Leadfeeder webinar before, we always encourage interaction. So if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to throw it into the chat or put it into the Q&A tab. We will, of course, have a Q&A at the end, but we typically have a lot of questions throughout. Please feel free to ask anything you want from Lauren. And then what we'll do is as well, I'll interrupt during when she's speaking or at a good time when you're speaking, Lauren. And then I won't just stop you mid-sentence, but I'll interrupt at a good time where we'll be able to maybe answer some of those questions, but please feel free to interact. We actually encourage it, okay?
Good.
So let's get into why we're here today. So we're talking around call coaching, okay? So some of the stats that I've been looking at in terms of why call coaching is important is because teams that coach have 28% higher win rates, right? That sort of makes sense to me to want to call coach if you manage to get 28% higher win rates, of course.
Massive.
Annual revenue is 7% higher with those teams that actually do focus on coaching. And then in terms of achieving quota, 91.2% of those organizations that do have a coaching mentality and a coaching methodology in place hit their annual targets, right? As opposed to 84.7% that if you don't have that coaching mentality or that coaching methodology, right? So look, there's many stats, which Lauren's going to get into in a few minutes as well at the start of her presentation. But I think just at the offset, some of the things from my perspective here is that more coaching equals more revenue. Like, it's quite simple. Like, you can see 28% higher win rates, plus 7% annual revenue, plus actually achieving quota. So, I mean, it just makes sense, right? And with that, like, I do a bit of an intro to Lauren as well. So people that aren't familiar with Lauren, but Lauren, I've been doing a bit of a deep dive on your LinkedIn, similar to what Aaron did a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we'll see how updated it is.
As well, honestly, I just not, well, one of the things I didn't know is that you've got Irish twins, which yeah. So for people that don't know what Irish twins are, by the way, that's kids that are very close together in age. So
they're exactly 365 days apart.
They have the same birthday.
Well, funnily enough, the second one was born on leap year. Not on leap year, but during a leap year. So he has his own birthday. And then as we were doing the math in our, sleep deprived haze, we were like, oh shit. Oh, pardon me.
That's fine. That's fine. We've had worse than that.
Yeah. Darn it. They are exactly 365 days apart.
That is insane. That's what the leap years helped you out there, because then they don't have the same birthday.
Well, exactly. May 1st and May 2nd.
There you go. Look at that. Okay. Well, look, in terms of some of the accolades that Lauren holds, according to your LinkedIn, in any case, top 25 sales coaches, top 35 most influential women in sales. And just looking at your experience, like after leading teams and launching inside sales teams over the past 20 years or so, you then went on to found Factor 8, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the main reasons why you went to find Factor 8 was because people are not very good at picking up the phone. That was the main thing that led you to doing that, which I understand. And I say this all the time, right? All the time. I'm getting very, very few cold calls, which I would expect in years gone by. I've gotten many, many phone calls or many cold calls. Nowadays, I'm getting barely any. And the ones that I am getting are terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. And it's one of those things I've managed. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, we're getting worse.
Yeah, that's the problem. People aren't flexing that muscle. They're not training the muscle well enough. And it's so important what you're going to speak about today. I'm so excited to actually see it. How can sales coaches actually, or sales leaders coach their teams to get better on the phone, because people are so bad at it. So bad.
We can talk about that for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. But let's continue with some of your experience as well. I also wanted to mention Girls Club, which is something that's really interesting as well. And actually the fundamental reason behind it, and you can get into that now in a moment as well, is to change the face, literally change the face of sales leadership, correct? Mm-hmm. And I think that's honestly, like, some of the words that you put in there is like management training and helping build confidence in female sellers, which is something that I think is so important, especially in the tech space. Tech space tends to be very male dominated, yes, especially in the sales force. And I think what you're doing there is actually very important. So you want to tell us a little bit more about what you're doing there, actually?
I'm so excited about it. Yeah, this is all about getting more women into sales leadership. It's hard to get women into sales in the first place. When we do, they knock the socks off of it and outperform men, according to a gajillion sources. And that's technical, by the way. It's a gajillion.
Okay.
Number. Yes.
Just taking a note of that.
37.6% of all statistics are made up on the spot. Anyway, this is an intensive certification program where once a year we take a cohort of women and we rapidly help them get promoted into management. Our success rate is 70% of the women at a rep level or manager level before the end of the 6 months. So wow. It's super successful. And that confidence building, I think, really is the magic bullet. It was tough for me. I was always the only female sales manager among my peers. And I struggled with my own confidence and my own imposter syndrome. I think we all do when we first get into management. I think it's just a little tougher on women. We're wired differently. Like, a man's going to go for a position if he's got 6 out of 10 of the criteria, is according to an HP study. A woman doesn't go for it until she has 10. So literally, she has to be able to do every single part of the job to raise her hand. And that's part of what we're trying to fix, if you will.
I mean, it's amazing work. And those results just show that whatever you're doing is bloody working. It's
bloody working. And it's the most fulfilling few hours of every one of my days. I did not mean to start a second company. I got sick of being asked to speak about it, at the bullshit women's breakfast every year at a conference. And it was like, oh, great. Breakfast is over. All right. See you next year for the same conversation. And so I was like, you know what? I think I can do something about this, because we can build confidence through training. And it's it's a subject that's near and dear to my heart, no matter what. That's what we've been doing at Factor 8 for 10 years before starting Girls Club. Like, sales is a confidence sport, and you've got to build that and have that to be successful. So I thought we had the right ingredients, and we just had to put them together in a different way. And it's been working gangbusters. It's wonderful.
That's fantastic. I'm really happy to hear that. Super stuff. Okay, well, look, let's get on with the agenda in terms of what we're going to run through today. So I'm going to hand things over to Lauren now in just a moment. But and Lauren, you'll take a run through the data. So some of the stuff that I mentioned before, as well as deep dive a little bit more into some other statistics around coaching and the importance of coaching. And then based on the content that you put together, I've seen there's a nice coaching framework, how to get started with coaching. Because for me as a leader as well, I also find it difficult. I mean, where do I start? There's so many things that I need to work on. Where do I even begin?
And how do you make the time for it? Because let's be honest, coaching is not, it's not on fire, right? There's plenty of things in your day as a sales manager that are on fire, but never is it, oh my God, I don't know something, you know, like it's just, it doesn't happen that way.
Exactly. And then the last part there is around the coach astrophies. I need to say that for a second time. But that's actually, I really like that phrase that you used in there. So some of the warning signs that you should look out for when doing coaching and when coaching is needed. So with that, Lauren, I will just hand over to you and let you get on. And what I'll do is, guys, as I mentioned, any questions at all, please feel free to throw them into the chat. I said throw them into the chat beforehand to Lauren just before this, and she didn't understand what I said because I can't pronounce my THs properly because of my accent. So please feel free to use the chat function and put in any questions that you have in there. Otherwise, you can also use the Q&A function as well, which is there as well. So Lauren, I'll hand it over to you.
Here we go. Let's do this. So thank you for the fabulous introduction, by the way. Yes, it's Lauren Bailey. If we haven't met before, my friends call me LB, so feel free. These are my brands down below. Factor 8 was my first company. The Girls Club we just talked about, and the Sales Bar, that's our online platform. And we have a lot of fun. We think it's very punny, right? We've got happy hours and learning shots and all kinds of fun stuff. The original title of this was 6 actions to take today. And by the time I was done grabbing tips and tricks from every coaching training I've ever done, and I'm like, we're at 16 at a minimum. So we had to call in and be like, change the slides. There's more tips. So you guys, this is going to be very tip rich. Be clear, what I'm doing here is giving you new ideas. And if you can take one thing and try it, it's going to be a success. There will be 15 other things we don't have a chance to try, but pick one by the end and master it. Do your very best. And we'll give you opportunities to join one of our boot camps where you can learn even more. So here's another great reason why. There we go. What percent? Let's warm up your chat fingers. Again, what percent of new managers fail in the first 2 years, according to the Corporate Executive Board? Find your chat and get me an answer. 30 from Aaron. Thank you very much. Keep going. Give it a shot. There is 0 prize for the right answer. I've got 70, 45, 60. Hi, Tiffany. 58. Yeah, the right answer, 60%. You guys are right there. You're right there. We also know the vast majority of us have been promoted from within and given 0 training and development. That's the tough part. In fact, when I first started Factor 8, Andy, we do a lot with reps, but I started with managers. That period of me being a sales manager and being way overemployed and not knowing what the hell I was doing is still so painful.
I think everybody finds themselves in that position at some point. In every single role. So every role that I've been in that's been in a senior position, I've always had that sort of pain in my stomach almost.
We know it.
You know, it's like, shit, yes. I need to help the guys, you know?
What am I doing and how do I do this? And I'm overwhelmed and I'm way out over my skis and it's tough. It's no surprise that we have a massive failure rate. And I'll tell you more about why. So here's the other sad part. According to Gallup, half the people who are quitting a company, they're really quitting their bosses. And we've heard this before, right? You join a company and you quit bosses. Listen, I wouldn't own Factor 8 if I hadn't hated my boss. Like, I needed to get out and away. So this is tough. Coaching can solve for both of these. This training can solve for both of these because this is the happy news, right? You guys, you're in management for the right reason. If you get just turned on by the light bulbs. If you, right, when someone on your team gets it and gets a win, and that feels better to you than when you got a win, you're in the right job, right? It is a feeling worth chasing over and over and over again. Don't let it go. So let's take some skills to help us get better at it. Here's another interesting stat. About 80% of managers in a survey said, yep, I'm coaching between 3 and 6 hours a month. And we're going to give you a chance to tell us that number here soon too. But less than half their reps agreed with that number. What? How is it that we think we're doing this much and our teams think we're doing this much? Right, Andy, you look surprised by that.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably because the leaders think that they are coaching. I don't know if they're lying. I think they probably feel as though they are coaching, and the people that are probably getting the coaching are like, this is not coaching.
100%. I agree 100%. And so the next slide I'm going to do is talk a little bit about coaching versus call coaching or skill coaching. Okay. So if you look at just what is coaching, right? It's any kind of development conversation. It can happen at any level. We're talking about how we can improve, and it's positive, and it's a style of management communication that uses questions, right? It's not me dictating, Andy, you need to do this. It's me saying, Andy, you're doing great. What do you think you need to do next? Boom. That's a coaching style conversation. It's not skill coaching or call coaching. And that's what this webinar is about. Okay. A call coaching, folks, whoops, I'm sorry about that. A call must be present. Let's go back up. I was trying to move my view, and it doesn't want to. It's going to stay right like this. It has to be present, right? Whether it's a recorded or a side-by-side, whether it's a YJack, even if you're only listening to your rep side of the conversation, because you can't get recording and blah, 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 that's fine. After you've been in management a few years, you know exactly what the customer is saying on the other end anyway, okay? Also, for it to be defined as call coaching, both of you have to give feedback on the call. You cannot have 3 or more people, more than 3 in the room. Like, that's just silly. Everybody has to leave with personal feedback for it to be coaching. Otherwise, it's training. Okay. We all have to participate, and we have to document it in some fashion. So that means that if I'm just coming by saying, Andy, what do you think we have to do this afternoon? That's not call coaching. If I'm listening to you live and I'm chatting to you what you should say, that's not call coaching. If it's the beginning of the month and we're looking at your numbers and your goals for this month, not call coaching. Okay. It's about skill development on the phone. What do you think, Andy?
I agree. It's actually interesting to hear the difference between coaching and training. And it's, yeah, there's a couple of things you mentioned there. Okay. So I think the first thing for me is actually making sure that whoever's doing the coaching is actually picking up the phone and trying to call as well. Because I think this is part of where we're at in terms of the LinkedIn world. People have great tips, but have never really done it themselves. Say a great game instead of playing a great game.
Right? They piss me off, if I'm really honest with you. I'm like,
yeah.
How are you an expert on this from anywhere?
That's the thing, and unless you've done the cold outreach thing, you're never really gonna be able to tell somebody else how better to do it, and I'm just laughing at the comments coming in from Marek here, because I'm looking at your picture here. My coach is Jesus. So like
and wait, and it's in German as well.
In German. Yeah.
Funnily enough, I didn't even see that. I just
my coach is Jesus. So Marek,
chat going, I'm super happy for you. I'm not sure that belongs on a webinar. It's on my slide.
I think probably next time we should probably avoid religion on the webinars.
Maybe. I have more subliminal messages in the slides. Just wait for it. I have a lot to say now.
Oh, there's only more to come. Wait, you see the next thing that's coming up now, Marek. You're gonna
right. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. It's gonna get worse. All right. So it's funny you said the difference between coaching and training, because I think a lot of us get this confused. And the bad news is it all winds up on the plate of the manager, and that's tough. So this is my secret sauce for behavior change. Coaching is a third of it. Okay. If there's something big and different that needs to be happening in your company, on your floor, on your team, it starts with a meeting. Okay. The meeting is even better if you can get a boss to do it. Somebody, you know, with fancy letters in their title like Andy. So Andy rolls out the change. It's new information. He's covering the who, the what, and the why. Here's the company line I'm towing, right? It's mostly one way with a little Q&A. Now, after Andy rolls this out and gets a little bit of the buy-in, I've got some interest. You've got my attention. Here's the part we skip. We've got to now go do training on this. Training is not just the why and the what. Training is the how and the where or the when, right? It's here's the questions you'll ask and when in the phone call, the behaviors you'll do and where on the job. It has to include practice. It will take 3 times longer than the meeting. There will be role play, and it needs to be learner-led or facilitated. People think training is what we all got in university, where some old guy stood there and talked to us for an hour, and that's shitty training. So if you get nothing else, don't say, like, I can't tell you how many young managers come in our boot camps and say, how come my reps won't do what I tell them to do? This is why. Okay. Now, the 1, 2, 3 punch, if you want this behavior change to last, you got to follow it up with the call coaching. Okay. Call coaching is custom feedback on the application of the skills they learned in training that the leader told them was coming in the meeting. This is, again, the when and how focused. You did the right skill, try it over here instead. Or during this moment is when you use that skill. And like we said before, a call is present and it's 1-on-1, 2-on-1, or 3-on-1. And again, it's question-based and 2-way. So this is the secret sauce to behavior change. Yes, it takes longer, but you will not want to beat your head against a wall afterwards.
For sure.
All right.
Just one question for you on that, by the way, Lauren.
Yeah.
Or like a comment, I think as well on the rep side. So for the people that are being coached, they also need to want it, I think. And that can also be a struggle.
Right? Absolutely. We were doing a boot camp. I just wrapped up one of our first call coaching boot camps yesterday. And Stephanie, this goes out to you. We were talking about final tips that we learned. And Stephanie said, one of the very first questions I need to ask during coaching is why. Why is this important? What is the payoff? And that needs to be covered all the way back at the meeting, but pulled throughout. People have to know what's in it for them. 100%. Good
Sure.
ad. Thanks. So you've already talked about this, right? Great call coaching can get big results, right? Average, which is everybody's normal call coaching programs, you just kind of wind up with the same results. Your numbers were higher than mine, but either way, the point is, with a great program, there's a great uplift. Most companies are ad hoc coaching, you guys. We don't have a strategy to it. There aren't rules and regulations. There's barely coaching forms or expectations. And so let's cover what makes great coaching. We have to have the strategy. Like our strategy behind coaching can be, this is about engagement. Our strategy can be, we will never lose a deal. Our strategy could be, right, everybody gets coached all the way through until they're an A rep. Our strategy could be, you know, there's all kinds of different angles on what and how and why we do coaching. The structure is the other big part. If you don't have a form, if you don't have a system, if you don't have call recording, if you don't have expectations about how often people are getting coached, you are destined for an average ad hoc program. Skills are where we're going to focus today. Skills are tough, right? The actual coaching skills. It's very hard to learn. The call coaching class has the most number of modules attached to it than any other Factor 8 course. And we're talking over 75 different modules. And then of course the systems can play into the strategy and structure. And all too often, right, we have one and not the other. I'll go get the call coaching system, but I'm not measuring the right things, or et cetera, et cetera. So it takes all of these together to have that A+ system. But skills are where we're going to focus. And here's why. Yowza. Number one, worst skill, call coaching. Are you surprised by this, Andy?
I'm not, no, because people are terrified of picking up the phone. They'd rather send an email that nobody's ever going to read.
It's so true, right? All right. But I think the reason that it's the worst management skill is that all of us used to be reps. What made us awesome at reps, right? Show me the money, get me the W, right? I am going to close this deal on no matter what. That's what makes us bad call coaches. So let me explain this a different way. It's an old book, but it's fabulous. It's called The Leadership Pipeline. And they talked about the fact that when you're leading yourself, like you're going up this line, right? Somewhere in the middle of this is, let's say, quota. Your very, very top superstar reps are at the total right-hand side of this line, right? Somewhere between quota and top reps, we promote them. And boom, now they're leading others. But guess what? You're not continuing on the same line in the same direction. You are stopping and turning and going a different direction, right? This part right here, that little difference, that is the stuff we have to unlearn as a top rep in order to change directions and be an effective manager. And this pipeline keeps going, right? Leading leaders, new direction, boom, 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 all the way up. But call coaching is what is wrong. Here's what gets lost the most. And it's because we're awesome reps. The better you are as a rep, the harder it is to be a call coach. Why? Because it ain't about you anymore, man. Right? I'm going to do anything for the win. I'm going to do anything for the deal. Those inhibit you from doing good coaching. I have the very best, coolest system and skills. I can close any deal. I am the rep messiah. Oh, there it is, religion again. You're going to be a shitty coach because you have to undo those behaviors. And that's where we get the 6 factor 8 coachastrophes. Now, I built these after training frontline sales managers for a decade. We do all of these. If you're getting to the end of this webinar and you're like, I haven't done a single one of those, you're lying to yourself. I do some of all of them, okay? Here's my confession. I'm the worst coach in the world, naturally. I was a great seller, shitty coach. So many of the hacks I'm going to share with you are because I needed them myself. Are we ready to go have some fun with these? Andy, what do you want to say?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, here we go.
I've got the swear jar filling up with loads of dollar bills here, by the way. Every time the word shit goes in, you know, you're clocking up some nice mileage there.
Well, you see, that's the thing. You didn't slap my hand the first time, so now it's just going to keep getting worse.
I never slapped anybody's hand because it'd be like the pot calling the kettle black, as we say.
It would then, right? But it's important you call it out, or you're going to have to start dropping 5s and 10s in the jar because I'll just get worse. I was raised by call centers, right? I'm basically a trucker. Yeah, it's true. All right, here we go. Number 1 coachastrophe is Debbie Downer. Wah, wah. Are you old enough to remember her from Saturday Night Live? Debbie Downer is the person who is just, here's everything that's wrong with your call. Okay. How do we beat it? Well, we have to reframe how we think about it. Okay. So you guys, I'm not even going to ask you to chat this in because it's an obvious thumbs up. Call coaching isn't just about fixing the call and winning the deal. It's an engagement opportunity. Remember, half the people on your team will quit because of their boss. That's you. So when you're doing call coaching, it's an opportunity to engage with your people, to help them want to be there, to help them want to work for you. So when you give them a Debbie Downer hour of everything they've ever done wrong on any sales call, kind of not hitting the mark. So here's what's helped me. Reframe call coaching. Coach the rep, not the deal. I literally have to use past deals to coach, and you may need to as well. This is about their skill development and their engagement and their bonding with you and the company, not about winning the deal. That's critical because yes, there are 13 things they could have done better to win the deal. And if you go in there trying to save it, you're effed. You are going to be a Debbie Downer coach and a few of these other coachastrophes as well. Cool. Why? Because your reps need to leave their call coaching session feeling like a freaking superhero. We all know from sales that the very best calls we ever have are the ones that come right after a win, right? You're on a high. Somebody said, yes, you got the deal, you got the meeting. It's time to go do it again. They need to leave your call coaching session feeling like that, okay? It's a way to sneak in the win and make sure they have great next calls. Your rule of thumb is 5 to 1. And nobody gets this right naturally. 5 attaboys for every 1 improvement area. What do you think, Andy?
you're speaking my language, because attaboy is my thing. Like that's every sales team that I've worked with, like in a previous organization, I led an SDR team as well. And people, what I found was that people were like, they knew that I just didn't give them out to anybody, that it wasn't just like I give an attaboy to somebody. And I actually said attaboy. I didn't give them like recognition. It was attaboy, you know, I did it in a public
Literally
forum.
said the words
Literally said attaboy, you know. And people were like, you know, oh, do I get the attaboy today? He doesn't give them out to everyone. And people like literally were coming after me for them. It was interesting, you know.
We all want it. We all want it. This is the hardest behavior to change. So in the boot camp, we work over 4 sessions over about 6 weeks. And the very last thing that people finally get is adding more of the positive in. We think it's our job to find all the ways that they can improve. And we get them to switch how they do it and asking more questions, et cetera. But we still have to force in more attaboys, because your reps, it needs to feel like the best hour of their day or 30 minutes of their day. So they go out and crush it on the next 10 calls. So something to change and keep in mind. I know it's hard. Next, catastrophe. I'm going to speed up a little bit because we're having so much fun. I'm not going to get through everything. It's when I do all the talking, right? So come on into the call coaching session and listen to me talk for 30 minutes and then leave. So here's how we fix that. It's something called the COACHN model. Now, the magic of the COACHN model is that this is a framework you can use in any one of your manager meetings. We do this in our 101 classes at Factor 8. And listen, I thought it was kind of this like throwaway foundational class. Everybody's number one favorite class in 3 generations of Girls Club, COACHN model. Here's what it stands for. COACHN, clarifying expectations. Here's what I've noticed: observe behavior, asking questions, AAAAA. It needs to be the COAAAAAACHN model. Committing to actions. How can I help? And next steps. Looks like this. Hey, last time we were working on blank. Let's see how you're doing. 1 sentence is the intro, folks. But if you don't set the expectations and you call your rep into a meeting, especially if it's not regular, they're going to be like, oh my God, I'm getting fired. So just tell them what the meeting's about right at the beginning. Hey, I heard your new intros in most of these clips. Fantastic. Way to go. I just hit 2 attaboys. How did it feel using the new technique? Did the customer's reaction sound any different to you? Where could we improve? I've got 3 questions in here, right? Your goal is 5. What can you do to focus on that skill? How can I help? Do you want to role play it? Do you want to write out your questions? Could I help you shadow somebody else who's great at it? What do you need from me to make sure that you keep your commitments? All right, next steps. You're going to bring 2 calls to our next session. You're going to send me your favorite call. You're going to send me your questions, whatever it is. What are the action items at the end? When is it being followed up on? And how many do they own versus you? That's another little secret tip. Managers tend to walk out of their first call coaching sessions with all the action items, and that's just setting yourself up for failure. Your rep should own them all. I see the big nods over there, right? Frontline sales management's the busiest job in the entire world. You've got to protect yourself and your time. The third catastrophe, Ron Burgundy. I'm kind of a big deal, right? Be like me. This is where you come in and tell your rep all the ways you used to win and close these deals. This is why it's hard for top reps to be great leaders, because we got lots of stories. So fill in the blank for me. Get out your chat, warm up your fingers. Coaches speak in Jesus t-shirts. No, they speak in what? What is the language of coaching? Chat it in for me. Aaron nails it in 1. Coaches speak in questions. Nice job. We're going to take that and move on. These are fun answers coming in. Coaches speak in questions, you guys. Absolutely. So here's my little cheat for what to do. As you're listening to a call with your rep and you're taking notes, if you've been in sales for a minute, most of your notes are about what they've screwed up, right? The left hand of the page is, oh my God, listen to this. It's awful. No. Live during that call, translate those into questions. Split your paper in half, write a question on the right-hand side each time. Okay. Now you're ready to speak in questions. We all know that great sellers do this. They speak in questions to their customer. They don't come in and tell the customer what to think. They ask the customer questions. That is selling. Use that skill in coaching, and it makes all the difference. Now, when we talk about speaking in questions, an advanced skill that we start talking about in our 201 level course is that very often our questions are leading, right? Andy, don't you think it would have been a good idea to ask the gatekeeper more questions? That is not a coaching question, right? That's the bottom of the funnel leading question. A really open question at the top of the funnel is, hey, how'd that call go? So we need to practice landing in the middle of the funnel, right? If your rep's struggling with pitching too soon, what rep doesn't? You can start with, hey, how'd it go? Or at the bottom, you can say, don't you think you, or would you agree that? What would be in the middle of that funnel? So I'm going to leave that challenge out there for you to try to find that because we don't have time to dig into it right now. The last tip to avoid be like me is to have a standard call coaching form. We're going to give you a sample of ours in our boot camp. The factory form is a little different than most, right? We talk about the description of the skill, but then on the right-hand side, as you can see, we talk about the results. Did you get the results you were looking for? I hate the fact that people get dinged on a form if they didn't say it the same way that everybody else wanted you to say it. Unless you're in medical or pharma and you are required to speak the exact same words, make sure your form isn't dinging people for having a personality and going off script. I might hate scripts a lot. If they got the desired information, even without saying what was on the left-hand side, they get the credit for it. Forms are also going to help you be consistent when people are moving between teams. They're going to help you spot trends. They're going to help you make the most of a system. You got to have a form start there. All right, Coach Yesterday, number 4, the laundry list. All those notes you took during the call, most of them need to get thrown away. Okay, remember this? Here's everything they did wrong on the left-hand side. All of them got translated into questions. Then you get to pick one, guys. That's it. How do you decide which one? Well, you can let the rep choose. You can decide what prevented the sale. You can decide what may have killed the feeling on the call. You may also look at, well, how about the customer point of view, right? How do we brand with the customer? But here's my rule of thumb. When the rep gives, it lives. If you decide, watch it die. You've got a 10x chance of your rep working on the skill if they pick it. So unless it is completely off base and they're screwing up something that will get them fired or lose every single sale forever, let them pick it because then they'll actually work on it. All right, the last catastrophe, is that, one before last, no time. And it's probably the biggest one. It is so hard to make time for coaching. We were talking about this at the beginning, right? It's a million things that are on fire, but your rep needing a little coaching, not on fire. So let's get our chats out again. I want to ask you guys how much time you spend. 8 to 10 hours a month, which means 30 minutes a day. That's A. B, 15 to 20 hours a month, an hour a day. 34 to 40 hours, 2 hours a day, or 3 hours a day is D. A, B, C, or D, chat it in. And no, I didn't use a complete 40-hour week because we all know the last few days of the month, nobody's getting any coaching. I got some D. I got some
C. And guys, don't forget to maybe when you're sharing this, Andrew mentioned before, quite rightly, if you could just, when you're putting something into the chat, can you click the 2 drop down to panelists and attendees so other people can see your answers? We're seeing a couple come in, D and C right now. If you're going to ask me about this, it's something I need to work on, and you're putting a fire under my ass here to get me to work on it a little bit here, Lauren, as well. I think A is unfortunately mine.
Yeah, but listen, just doing A is something, right? Doing A is something. So I asked this at the beginning because you need to build a strategy based on reality, right? If your answer is A or B, you got to know that you're going to be lucky to get to each one of your reps once a month. Be happy with that. Build a strategy to complete that. And I think it's like that wishful thinking that screws us up here. Okay. So I'm going to help you get some time back in your day next. I want you to think about your group. Any team you have is eventually going to find itself on the normal distribution curve. So I don't know if you guys remember this or not from statistics way back, right, in secondary school, but your team will have A players, right? And the A consistently outperform quota. B, they hit quota every month. C, they're hitting quota sometimes, they're missing sometimes. Maybe they're decent at quota, but they're not quite as engaged. They're on that cusp. D are the folks who are just not getting it. They might have huge months. They might have tanked months. They're probably on some sort of performance write-up. These are the folks you're going to probably recycle out the door and replace with your N's, the newbies. I put them off the chart because it's not fair to put them with the D's, even though that's the revenue they're bringing in, because we don't know where they're going to end up yet. So here's the question. If you can only get to one of these groups, who is your number one coaching priority? Let's let the audience chat it in. But Andy, I'm going to ask you, I've got some A's and B's coming in the chat. What do you think, Andy?
So just so I understand this correctly, and I see this makes me nauseous seeing a bell curve, by the way, because it brought me back to statistics back in uni, which I failed twice. So
statistics are tough. Yeah.
But now I'm purely focused on data, but I never liked looking at it like this. So just so I understand, the 234% that you have there in the middle, what group is that referring to?
Your B's and C's.
Your B's and
the
C's.
Orange is split between B's and C's. B's on the top half of the mean, C's on the bottom half of the mean.
Got it. I would think you need to be focused on your B's and C's.
Andy, you're exactly right. B's are your number one priority, everybody. Most managers go to the C's and D's. The squeaky wheel is getting the oil. You will not get the same ROI. So we've run the numbers. If you can get your B's coached up 10% and moving to the A's, you will have the largest return on investment. More than fixing A's 5% higher, more than C's 5%, D's, doesn't matter. B's are going to get you to your number. You make your number every month on the backs of your B's. Okay. So prioritize your B's and then your N's. The other big mistake we make is leaving off the A's. They want it and need it too. Yeah. Just remember, it's about engagement. You're not going to your A's to try to fix them. If anything, you're just going to your A's to be dazzled for 30 minutes. Help them feel fantastic and give them the Andy attaboys. Okay. So the trick here is, if you don't have enough time, schedule your B's and N's first. Maybe they get twice a month and your A's get every other month. I use my A's to coach my D's because you can't care more than they do. All right. Maybe your C's get coached in groups and you leave off your D's, right? If they really want the coaching, they can start coming to work on time. So
or the D's are maybe an example of the people that maybe shouldn't be on the team.
That's usually where the D's are, right? So don't waste your precious time. Dole it out correctly. Be honest about how much time you have and then split down your month so that you're getting the right people in the right order. Everybody does not need to be coached equally. Take that pressure off yourself. It's the only way to get to them all. Here's a few other tips. Schedule out the middle 2 weeks of your month first, right? First week, you're going to be doing a lot of the period of the month, whatever your sales cycle is, right? You're doing the performance reviews. You're doing here's where you wound up. Here's your new goals. End of the month, you're helping close deals. So get your coaching in the middle too. Schedule your B's and N's first. Don't go crazy scheduling all day long and coaching. It's never going to happen, man. Leave half your day open for the emergencies, for the slacks, for the line at your desk. Let your reps know your plan. Help them understand you're going to amp up your coaching and for them to work with you. Test it out a month or two and then send recurring meeting invitations. Okay. Under schedule versus over schedule. Guys, no showing or canceling on coaching sends exactly the wrong message. It is better to never have scheduled it at all. All right. How do you protect your coaching time? Snooze your notifications. Okay. Attend this meeting. Don't schedule them for a whole hour. Go 25 minutes or 45 minutes. Push everything else into meetings. Okay. We know there's a line at your desk and now it's a line on Slack if you're still virtual. Your reps want to tell you about everything that's happened in their day all the time. Your job is to get good at protecting your time. Andy, cool story, man. Want to hear it. Can you bring it to our huddle? Andy, so sorry somebody ate your food out of the fridge. Very interesting. Why don't you bring it to our one-on-one? Andy, can you go get Sally's advice on that? I'm jumping into a meeting. Okay. When you talk about protecting your coaching time, I'm sorry, I'm in coaching right now with Andy. That's really important to me, right? Why don't you hit me back in 20 minutes or bring it to our one-on-one? You're sending the right message all the time. And this one's my favorite, the last one. Can you hit me back in 15 minutes? Don't take that action item to follow back up with them. Reps are like water, man. We will always flow the path of least resistance. They are asking you because they're looking for an easy answer. And if they can't get it from you in 5 minutes, they will get it somewhere else.
I think that's actually a very good point. And I think all the things you just mentioned here are incredibly important when we're, especially with virtual teams nowadays.
It's
Being
so
a
true.
virtual team, it's like, and Slack can be a nightmare.
It can be a total nightmare. You can also have a buddy, right? That says, listen, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, I'm coaching. So Andy, my team's going to come to you. And this is assuming that you have a really short sales cycle with emergencies, folks. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, people can freaking wait a couple hours. Yeah. They just can. Yeah. We're not curing cancer over here. Let's just remember.
Exactly. We're not saving lives. That's what I always tell myself. Yeah, we're not saving lives. Exactly.
Chill out. Chill out. All right. The last coachastrophe is the hamster wheel. And this is where every single month, Andy and I are working on the exact same thing because it's not getting any better, right? So what we do is a wins form. And I'll tell you, since we built this wins form, which is a paper, what I need to succeed, where we track their focus areas, it deepens the commitments, we sign off on it, we have a paper record. There are now systems for this, right? I love Ambition that does this. Level 11 does something like this. There's lots of different systems that you can now track what you're doing. If you're using a coaching form, you're using it inside of a conversational intelligence tool like Chorus or Gong or Exact Vision, you can track it there as well. You can use a freaking email if your company doesn't have the software, or download this one from us, and it's super easy. Here's your tip: resist owning this form. Don't fill it out, your rep does. Don't save it, your rep does. Okay, they send it to you. Nice. If you're virtual, I just wanted to cover some quick tips. Okay, it's not going to happen. You can't do the drive-by coaching anymore. So the number one thing you need to know is schedule it. The number two thing is get call recordings if you don't have them. And if nothing else, just schedule that you're jumping on a live call with them. Don't take over the call. You are a silent observer. If you're doing call recordings and using Zoom, which so many of us are, here's my little tip. When you go to share screen, there's a tiny button at the bottom. Share computer sound. We think Zoom works best for using call recordings, but you got to check that little button and it works better. If you don't have them, role play, do small groups, get on the joint calls, but you got to do it. So here's our final tips by the numbers. 5 attaboys, 5 Andys, 1 improvement item each time. 5 questions, double the chance if it's their idea. Average 1.5 coaching sessions per month per rep. As you're building this out, that's our coaching 201 class. We're going to help you decide who gets how much coaching, right? The average is 1.5 per month. Quit the dreaming that you're going to do it every day. And 0 action items on your list. So here's our pitch at the end. We do have coaching boot camps coming up. We also have a brand new manager boot camp if that's new for you. So this is a new thing for us. We usually work with big companies and we haven't had anything for the individuals or the small companies. These are low budget dollars. So our first boot camp is a Management 101 that's starting in April. We're bringing call coaching back in October. The results and the difference I saw in the people in this boot camp was tremendous. So it's 3 or 4 online classes and live classes. It's interactive. You get a cohort of people. We have had folks from all over the world join us, and you get $100 off if you join in the next 24 hours. It's factory.com/bootcamp. And you'll get a ton of downloads like these and call coaching forms and QA forms for directors to coach their coaches. It's all good stuff. That's it. That's my contact info. If you've got questions, you can learn more about our brands there. And if nothing else, find me on LinkedIn. Andy, back to you.
Lauren, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I really enjoyed that, actually. And although I'm not a sales
wait a minute. I love the actually part because did everybody else hear that too?
Hold on. Let me finish what I was about to say. Hold on. Oh, this is my wife. Like I should know from my wife when I say something like that.
I just wifed you.
She just comes straight in, you know. No, I not being a full-on sales leader myself, I think this translates for all teams. I don't think this is just for sales. There's so many relevant things in here for marketing teams, for product teams, just around the structure around selling, I think is fantastic. So like, thank you for that. It was actually really insightful.
I was expecting very little out of this altogether, but in the end,
basically, I wasn't expecting, but like my expectations were beaten, like really. So your words, not mine, Lauren. Your words.
I know. I'm teasing you. I'm just teasing. I promise.
So look, guys, we have another couple of minutes. Lauren, there was one question that was actually interesting that came up throughout. It was around how do you actually create a culture for coaching within organizations?
Boy, that's a tough one. So I'm going to assume that you're the leader. Feel free to chat it in if it's different. Okay. If you want to create a coaching culture as a leader, I've got a gajillion tips. Here we go. Number one, top of mind. People can tell what's important to you, AKA what your culture is, based on two things. The first one is what you talk about. The second one is where you spend your time. So if you want a coaching culture, what you're saying is this is a culture where people are continuously developing. This is a culture where my managers spend time helping develop people. We're looking at learning. We're looking at continuous improvement. We're looking at authenticity where you don't have to be, pardon me, you don't have to be perfect. All of those things are what it means to me to be a coaching culture. So check yourself as a leader. How often are you talking about the importance of learning and coaching when you're talking to reps, when you're talking to managers, when you're talking to other leaders? You would show that that's important perhaps by going out and shadowing coaching sessions that your managers are doing with their people. You would show it's important by buying some training for people and putting them through training or allowing your training department to come in and work with them. You would show it's important by having a book club where you're all working on, right? There's low cost, no cost ways to train. You don't have to hire a vendor. You would show it's important by asking questions about it. If I had a monthly sales managers meetings today, like I did back in the day, I would say, great, what are the top 3 skills that you're working on with your team? And that would mean I would know you've worked with every person on your train, you spotted the trends and you're rolling it up to me. And it's important. And if you didn't know the answer, you would by the next time we had that meeting, right? You would show a coaching culture by teaching people how to do good call coaching. You would invest in putting together a strategy and a call coaching form and a system and training. So all of those are positive actions that you can take that show people what it is. And like I said, the second thing was where you spend your time. So if you're shadowing meetings, if you're talking about it, if you're doing group call coaching, if you're doing lunch and learns, if you offer your own call coaching sessions where people can bring you calls every day at lunch or every Friday or whatever it is, all of those are signals from the leader that development is important around here. And by the way, it's the number one things millennials are looking for when they're job searching.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Anytime that millennials are in job interviews, they ask what's the progression path looking like, and which is incredibly important in the SDR position. So like the position, like inside sales, they need to see what that. Like sometimes it's hard to say what the actual path to growth looks like, but if you do have some form of coaching in there, some form of being able to teach and help people get to the next level, it tends to be a lot more palatable than coming out and saying, well, you're just going to have to learn the ropes for a couple of years, kid, and then see how you get on.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and here's the thing, coaching checks the box for both of those, right? Because what they want is development. What they want is a chance to excel. And what they want is access to leadership. Check, check, check.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's a very, very good point. I have one question from myself. And just before I ask, guys, if you have any further questions for us, please feel free to just throw it into the chat. We have another 6 minutes, and I keep on saying throw it into the chat. Please type it into the chat, address it to panelists and attendees.
I love it forevermore. You're going to feel self-conscious when you tell them.
I know. I'm like questioning my entire existence here because I can't say CH properly. Now,
all in a day's work, Andy.
So just in terms of some of because you're a leader and you're, I guess, constantly trying to learn yourself as well, trying to understand, okay, what are the next trends, which direction should I be helping my team in, and so on. What are some of the resources that you look at? Tough. I know it's tough. Like, do you do like books even that you've read that have been a big influence? You mentioned one earlier on.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fake news. And like, let's go politics for a minute, because we have, we've covered religion. Fake news is a new thing. But there's a lot of people you can follow on LinkedIn where you're like, why is everybody so excited about this dude, man? That is simple stuff. So you find people who consistently put out good content on LinkedIn. There's free content everywhere. And there are some I absolutely follow, who I just love. I think Sherry Leviton's fantastic. I think that Jill Conrath is fantastic. They're two wonderful writers in this area. I find groups that put out good content. Sales Hacker does a really nice job of getting good specific content out there that helps people. When I look at management books, one of the best ones written, I think, in the last decade is Cracking the Sales Management Code, which is helping people understand numbers. We wrote a class loosely based on it. It's called Driving Performance with Goals. So as a leader, when you say, okay, this is everybody's goal for the number for the month or the period or whatever, as managers, we got to learn to translate that, right? So what is that for an individual, and what does that mean for a day? But what does it mean if I translate it into behaviors and actions and tasks? And how do I get past just metrics? Because metrics don't motivate. And so understanding all those levers at your fingertips, I think that book does a really nice job in getting there. My favorite overall management book I showed before, which is so old, and that's The Leadership Pipeline. I think that's amazing. I love anything that Seth Godin does, because he's a marketing guru. But my favorite line of his is let your freak flag fly. And because I think all too often we've scripted reps within an inch of their lives. And it's no wonder that people don't trust salespeople and connect anymore. So I think we got to get more authentic to really engage and connect with people, and just being 20% more human makes all the difference in the world. So I'll stop trying to list, but those are some of my favorites. And honestly, a lot of them are a little bit older. Simon Sinek and all of his stuff, and authenticity and leadership. I love his stuff too.
Yeah, they're good tips. And I think the stuff that you mentioned, it's older, but I still think that a lot of it is comes down to psychology, really, and how the human works.
I 100% agree. I studied that in uni. You were talking about uni before. I did a joint degree in psychology and business. And I think I look back now with, my old lady wisdom, and it's like, no wonder I wound up in training, right? And in human performance improvement.
You mean your young lady wisdom, of course.
Naturally, yes, of course.
No, but I agree. I think it's, like even when I think back to uni, and I'm out of uni now 15 years almost, but some of the stuff that I was taught back then still stands true today. Although like systems and tools and so on have changed. Yeah, of course. The way in which we work digitally and so on, like it's stuff that just wasn't invented. But in terms of how humans actually interact with one another hasn't changed massively. Like,
no, it hasn't changed massively. And I think the research helps us support that. You know who else's research I love? Gong Labs. Right? They always have really cool stuff to help you get insights and directions to coach. But I will tell you that 90% of the sellers out there just need some help with the basics. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing the exact same mistakes with sales forces today than I saw 20 years ago. And it's no surprise though, because we're getting younger and younger reps. They're getting less and less training. They have less and less experience. But now on top of it, we have our most senior field people trying to figure out how to sell virtually. So those basics of virtual selling make massive spikes. We see time and time again in behavior change and numbers change.
Yeah. No, I can see it myself. It's it's tough, especially for younger people. If they're maybe just straight out of uni themselves, they've just gone and started their first job. They're trying to be coached. They're trying to understand how the world works a little bit. They're trying to be independent. There's lots of different factors there, especially inside sales teams. Those teams can be very difficult to manage. I sometimes refer to them as like the kindergarten of the organization. Sure. And you need to put on kiddie gloves sometimes with them. And there are personal things that they need to learn as they're growing up, because they're all 20 years old, and they may have they've just moved out of home and they're not being supported by mom and dad anymore. And all these different things add up.
Yeah, right? And they're trying to do video calls in their bathroom because they live with 6 roommates. And exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. We have to invest in training those people. They're not going to just get it naturally. And as leaders, we can't get it. Listen, when I came up, it was like everybody you looked for had 2 to 3 years of experience, a college degree, and played a competitive sport, right? That person doesn't exist because by the time they have 2 to 3 years of experience, they've burned out. The average lifespan of an SDR is around 16 months.
Yeah, there you go. One question just before we finish, Lauren, I'm very wary of time here. We're just about to go over. Andrew asked, which tools and resources, where do you find target clients outside of LinkedIn? Do you subscribe to a service, software, or buy lists? So where are you getting your lead lists from? We spoke about this just beforehand as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of creative ways to get lead lists. And Andy and I think that virtual events are a little iffy on that. Webinars still work, but there's a lot of saturation. I mean, here we are on one right now. I think that my personal opinion is I would rather see a leader buy a list and teach their people how to work it effectively than spend all of their time online trying to find their own leads, because any excuse a rep has to not pick up the phone, they will take it and use it all day long.
Yeah, I think I'd add to that. I would say that it's a mix of marketing and sales need to work together on some form of account level targeting, so that marketing and sales both come up with a list of accounts that they want to work. So think about it backwards. Which accounts do I want to win or need to win this year? And then have that as a list, and then work backwards from there and try to engage with buyers on those accounts. So you're looking at maybe try to get your SDRs or salespeople to be engaging with maybe 6 people on each of those accounts. If you're in enterprise sales, it's 6 to 9 people, and try to get engagement points on each of those different accounts, rather than thinking about, okay, where do I buy a list from that's completely cold? Of course, you'll have the list, but like if you're using something like Zoom Info or something, you will get that list, of course. But then it's about how do you do the outreach, and it should be marketing and sales working together to penetrate into those accounts.
With email, social, and phone calls. Get on the phones.
Everything. Lauren, we're just having gone over by a minute. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really great. I really enjoyed it. And I'll be very carefully using the word actually again in the future. I've made a note of that.
You can tell your wife you're welcome. Yeah. A ton of fun, Andy. I really loved it. Thank you so much.
Thanks you so much. Exactly. Thanks, guys. And thank you for coming on. And please follow Lauren on LinkedIn, and also have a look at what the guys at Factor 8 are doing. And please sign up for one of their boot camps. It sounds really cool.
Good stuff. It's good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Take it easy. Bye-bye.